Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another viewers requested video. I might combine two here. It depends how and if I get sidetracked. This one has been asked for by Michael 6, and it's basically the relationship between heat, humidity, light relative to the time of year. That is quite a complex subject, and I'm going to combine it, as I'm stood right in front of the fan, with airflow. And I'm going to start with airflow because it will become relevant to the other subjects. Now, when we talk about airflow, you've heard me say, what is the difference between airflow and a draft? Right, where I'm standing here, I've got airflow. It's gently brushing across my face, which out of the exposed parts, well, we won't go too deep into that, your face, your cheeks are the delicate bits that measure this sort of thing. And this fan is just gently touching my face. It has a very slight cooling effect. Now I'm going to take a step backwards. So I'll just wait for it to cycle round. Now I can only just feel it, and I've got to concentrate. Yeah? So we go back to where we were. Now we go to here. Now, all up my sleeves, all across my neck, and my whole face is getting chilled. Now, if this was a hot summer's day, that would be wonderful, but it's not. It's 16 degrees in here. That is a draft. It has a dramatic cooling effect against the current temperature. The current temperature in here is already cool. This fan is not here to cool anything down. This fan is here to just very gently move the air. Now let's have a look at the effect. That's a draft. Yeah? Luckily that's on a cool growing plant, and it's only sat there because it's in bloom. And if it objected badly to that draft, which is what it is, it would probably drop its buds or blast the blooms, or something would go wrong. But it's an oscillating fan. The plant is out of that draft more than it is in it. So when that fan comes round, it doesn't gently move the air, it actually moves the air at a reasonable pace. Yeah? Now, it will be having a slight cooling effect on that plant, but it's a cool grower, so it's not going to object to it. You know, if that was cattleyas getting that amount of cooling when it's already too cool for them, that would be classed as a chill. Yeah? So all of this is air movement, but you've got to sort of think, what effect is it having on the plants? Now, if it was 28 degrees in here, yeah, then that fan would be having a cooling effect, which would be beneficial to some of the plants because they're now starting to get up the warmer end that they would prefer not to be in. So the cooling effect would be beneficial. But you really have got to watch the difference between airflow and a draft. If it was hot in here and I opened the door fully right back there, that would produce some airflow because the warm air would go out of the door and be replaced by cooler air. That would just be a very gentle thing that would happen over time. If, however, I opened the door a couple of inches, the change of airflow would be directed through that narrow channel, and this side of it could be classed as a draft. Now, I've seen drafts through an open window that people don't even know are there, because the room that their orchids are in has got a bit warm. Oh, we'll open the window a bit. Yeah, and outside it's not warm. And they've only opened the window a little bit. That will produce a draft. And if the plants are stood in front of it, that can be quite damaging. You've got to go careful. Next, we move on to the rest of the subject, the relationship between heat, light, humidity and the time of year. You can see we've already touched on that by talking about airflow. Yeah? Now let's have a think. We'll start off in summer. Yeah? Now I'm going to stick to talking about areas dedicated to growing. So this is not necessarily a windowsill in the home. That is a different subject altogether. So we're talking about greenhouses, conservatories, you know, that sort of thing, where it's dedicated to plants. So the chances are there's a lot of them, yeah? They might even be quite close together, like some of these. These are close together for the lights, not for the airflow. So that's another thing, right? So we'll start in the summer with light. Now I'm on the south coast of the UK. What light do I get in the summer? I get the best there is for this country. How long is it there for in the summer? We get up towards 16 hours. Yeah? But the bit at the beginning and the bit at the end is useless. As when it's getting light and when it's getting dark, there isn't enough light to do plants any good. It's the bit in between. So although the day length from sunrise to sunset might be 16 hours, there's probably only about 15 of usable light. Nonetheless, that's more than tropical orchids get, where their day length switches between about 11 to 13 hours. But what's the difference then? So they get shorter day lengths and we worry about not having enough light. Have you ever seen the difference between the light level in the UK in midsummer and on the equator at midsummer? When the sun's almost directly overhead, it hasn't got to get through all the muck and everything that we produce. It's bright, it's intense. However, as you move away from the equator, the sun comes in at an angle, and the more north or south you get, the greater that angle, and the more of the muck it's got to get through. It's not as intense, yeah? Which is why some orchids have difficulty blooming in the UK, ever, because they just never get light that's intense enough. Now, take that to the other extreme in the winter when we get down to sort of, well, daylight at 8 hours. It's probably less than that because of the non-usable bits either end. We've now got a ridiculously short day length. Plants take a while to respond to change in light. So when it goes from night to day, which can take anything up to an hour, certainly half an hour in the UK, it's not one of these the sun comes up and suddenly you want your sunglasses like in the, in the Sahara Desert and places. So it takes a while before you've got the brightest light. And plants respond during that time and on into the other end of it. So it takes a while for them to respond. And then out of what's left is not a lot. So there's not a lot of growing going on because by the time they've responded to the fact it's daylight and they can start doing all the photosynthesis and that, it's going to be starting to change to get dark again. So they don't grow much in that light. Now what else affects them? So that's day length and light intensity. And don't get fooled by your eyes. Your eyes and your brain will play silly games with you. If you've been outside in your garden on a nice sunny day and you walk indoors, your brain will be saying, "Cool, it's dark in here, isn't it?" No, it's no darker than it was when you left to go outside in the garden. Your eyes take a while to adjust, and after a while your eyes and your brain will say, "There's not a problem with the light level in my lounge, it's fine." No, it's not. It's not the same as that light level out in your garden, is it? It's nothing like it. So don't be fooled into thinking the light in your home is good enough, because in a lot of places in your home it won't be. And if it isn't good enough, plants will never do as well as they should do. They might do okay, but they might not do as well as they could. Now obviously if you want more light in the home, you've got to get close to your windows, and then you do battle with trying to get as much light as the plants need against the sun coming in through the glass and burning all the leaves. So there's a balance there. But just remember that light intensity, certainly in places like the UK and equivalents around the top and the bottom of the world, they haven't got the intense light that you get in the places where these tropical orchids come from. And then you say, ah yeah, but don't they come from tropical forests? Haven't they got a load of leaves over the top of them? And the simple answer is yes. Nonetheless, the light intensity in those semi-shaded areas is still very good. You've got to get down into deep jungle type stuff before you start losing light, and you can call it genuine shade. Yeah? Shadier, but not real shade. You need some pretty intense undergrowth to get that in those, you know, near the equator type light intensities. So that's light. Now I'm extending my day length, so the amount of light that my orchids, most of my orchids, I won't say all of them, but a fair few of them are getting their light extended up to a 12-hour day length, which is about mid-range, you know, between 11 and 13, 12's in the middle. So I use the natural daylight that I get, you know, through the glass. There's no shading here. That provides some shade because it's not clear glass, but not much. And the rest of it is clear glass. So I've got good light in here, even in the winter for the UK. But I extend the day length using artificial lights to keep it at 12 hours because I want things to grow better than they did previously. After I moved house, things went a bit wrong when I moved in here. So that's sort of going at light. Now, humidity, we measure it with gadgets that measure relative humidity. There's one here. And that's actually saying it's 13.5 degrees because it's 2 degrees out. It always reads 2 degrees low, so it's between 15 and 16. The proper one over there says 16, so that's good enough. And this says 71% relative humidity. Yeah? So what do we mean by relative humidity? It's gone up to 72 just because I looked at it. Right. At this temperature, the air can hold a certain amount of moisture. There is a maximum at this temperature, at which point the water starts to condense on surfaces. That's why you get that condensation on your glass sometimes. Yeah? Not on your plants, you really don't want that. But you can get condensation on surfaces. Now, the warmer the air gets, the more moisture it can hold. This is why the measurement is called relative humidity. So at, let's say, 15 degrees and 70% humidity, if you took that 15 degrees up to 25 degrees, your humidity would drop from 70 down to about 50. Maybe not quite as low as that, but it will drop. As the temperature goes up, the humidity reading drops. Is there any less water in the air? No. Nothing's changed, has it? The amount of moisture in the air is exactly the same. It's the reading that's changed because of the way we read the relative humidity. That's why I'd always recommend in your mind you always think of it as relative humidity and keep that word relative there to remind you. Yeah? So if we were at our 25 degrees and we wanted to maintain 70%, we would be pumping more humidity into the air to keep our reading at 70%, which at 25 degrees is pretty good stuff. Your orchids will probably love it. What's going to happen when it comes to night time? When it comes to night time, you've just bumped up your humidity to 70% at 25 degrees. Now, if at night time that temperature drops back down to 15 degrees, what's going to happen to your humidity? It's going to rocket upwards, and it may even get to 100%, when water will form all over the place. And that is far, far, far too high for most orchids. You'll start inducing rot, you'll start getting problems. Yeah? That's why I had to change here, because I didn't get my head round that soon enough when I moved in here, because I was using the same head that worked in the other place with all its temperatures and measurements and everything. And when I got here, it didn't work. And it didn't work because I didn't have such high temperatures, but I was trying to work with the same levels of humidity. And after a while I twigged, why am I getting all this rot? Why am I getting problems? And it was because the relative humidity was higher at those lower temperatures. There was more moisture in the air than I needed. So here, at the moment, at whatever it is, has it dropped down yet? No, we're still between 15 and 16 degrees. Around 70% humidity is a bit high, but I've only just opened this door. Yeah? So prior to me opening this door, the heater and this big circulating fan would have been cutting in and out to keep this at 15, 16 degrees. It's 15 actually. But now I've opened the door, my nice heat from the lounge that keeps me warm and toasty is drifting out here. Some of it is being drawn out by this, because when this fan gets to there, to push air out here, it's got to suck it in from somewhere, hasn't it? So it starts pulling some air from my lounge out here, which means I can maintain my temperature out here without using the heater all day long, which I'm prepared to do, because at this time of year with the temperatures we've got at the moment, the heating's on in the house anyway. I can spare a bit for the orchids to save on the expense of running this heater during the day, because obviously that's 2 kilowatts cutting in and out. That's my big expense, is the heater. So yeah, humidity. Everybody seems to think that orchids need really high humidity. Some do, but go steady what you're taking on board when you think these things through. Restrepias, Masdevallias, they like high humidity. Do they really? What temperature range do they naturally grow in? They are cool growers. Therefore 70 to 80% humidity at less than 20 degrees is not actually as high as you think. The amount of water in the air is not as high as you think, compared with 70 or 80% at 30 degrees C, and you're getting to the point where it's not worth having a shower because it's impossible to ever get dry at those temperatures and that level of humidity. When you get into monsoon areas where the temperature stays high and it chucks it down with rain and the rain stops, everything is, you know, literally 90% humidity at 30 plus degrees. That's almost saturation point. And at those temperatures, the plants that grow in those temperatures quite like it like that. I can't maintain that. I could, if I had endless funds, I could whack that thermostat up to 27, 28 degrees, get Hurricane Hector fired up, and I could actually maintain 70, 80% humidity at 27, 28 degrees, and I'd have a jungle atmosphere in here. And a lot of the orchids that haven't done very well would suddenly start doing really well. And all my Restrepias and Masdevallias and Coelogenes would keel over. Not overnight, but they would eventually fail because that's too hot for them. So humidity is a relative thing, and the amount of moisture doesn't necessarily change, but the reading you get changes as the temperature changes. Yeah? So a given amount of moisture at a set temperature, if the temperature goes up, the level of moisture doesn't change, the relative humidity will drop. If the temperature drops down, the relative humidity increases. Yeah? There is actually a formula where you can actually work out, you can predict, you know, if I drop the temperature 5 degrees, my humidity will change by this amount if there's no addition or subtraction from the level of moisture in the air. So I'd be happy in here at these temperatures with 60%, a reading of 60%. Now it's up to 70, it will start to drop because I'm now using some of the air out of the house. Well, that's drier air. So the fact that my humidity level at these temperatures is a little high, it will drop down now that I've got this door open. So it's not going to stay this high for too long. Yeah? And the other thing is, when you've got humidity in the air, orchids like that air to move. They don't like stationary air, especially with higher humidity, because the tiny droplets in the air are actually resting on the plant, which gives pathogens and mold chance to form. By keeping the air moving, you avoid a lot of those circumstances. So that's what the airflow mixed in with it goes with. So what else did we have? It's heat, humidity and light and time of year. Right, because of my lower light levels, I know I've got artificial light for some, but I'm still lower than the light levels I would have in the summer because I haven't got the outside light coming in. It's not as bright, it's called winter. And also I've got the, you know, reduced day lengths for when so I've got reduced light levels when my lights aren't on. My lights take a reasonable light level up to a 12-hour day length, but it's still not as good as it would be in the summer. And with the lower temperatures, a lot of my plants have slowed down. Some may have even stopped growing. Yeah? So we don't need anything dramatic to just keep them ticking over. So what I could do, I may have to start because we're in for quite a cold snap now. They're predicting a few days of daytime temperatures only 4-5 degrees C and nighttime temperatures below 0. So I'm not going to get any residual heat from outside helping this place bump the temperature up during the day. It's gone up by 1. That's the heat coming out of the lounge. The humidity will start to drop as well. But what I might do is take the thermostat up to say 17 and add another 2 degrees on to get my differential between the day and the night. It's only going to be needed to do that while these temperatures are this low. But what's going to happen today, because the temperatures are this low, is the house is going to start to cool down a bit because some of the heat's coming out here. Which obviously means my heating in the house will have to work harder. Work harder equals more expense. Constantly trying to balance looking after me and all my stuff and not breaking the bank. Anyway, so that's that. As I said, it's a complex subject because all of these airflow, heat, humidity, light and day lengths are all interrelated. They affect different orchids in different ways. There are some orchids that can't stand short days and low light levels. They just don't progress. And I've got a couple. I mean, there's a big fat dendrobium there with a gorgeous new cane on it. And why is there a mark on that leaf? Pass. That could be cold damage. But that is a warm to hot grower and needs intense light to bloom. So it's not going to do very well here. I'm just seeing what I can do with it. But chances of me getting that to bloom are pretty slim, you know, so we shall see. Most of the Oncidium types in here are okay. There aren't many of those that need heat. They're quite happy at you know, sort of 22 to 25 degrees for their maximum daytime temperature in the growing season. They'll do fine with that. And there's a lot of plants in here that don't even need that amount of heat to do okay. The cotyledons, some of the cooler dendrobiums, cymbidiums while they're in here, but then it's winter when they're in here. So some of the things, Restrepias, Masdevallias, they're all okay at the lower temperatures. So it's a relationship between all of those things, and when you get it right for the plants you've got, they will thrive. You will see good strong growths, nice fat pseudobulbs, nice long canes, nice healthy green shiny leaves. Everything will look good because the atmosphere, the environment is right. Getting it right for a multitude of different plants is not going to be easy if they're all in the same place, is it? So some are always going to do better than others. Anyway, a chatty one, and I need to go. Where are we? So that relationship between heat, humidity, light, time of year was Michael 6. So let's go back through my list. Airflow was Elzo. Oh god, I'm not going to be able to say that. I'll show you. My writing is so bad I can't read it myself. Sorry about that, Elzo. But that was the person who asked about airflow. So those two combined, done today. And yeah, it is cold at the moment. The outside temperature is down. I will keep the old oh look, we've got a, let me just turn that off because I'm going to get close. Oh blast. See, just moving my hand, there was a male chaffinch. You might have caught it on the ground at the base of the feeder. There was a male chaffinch, very attractive bird. For the UK, we don't tend to get that bright, you know, not really brightly coloured birds. I suppose the brightest colours you get on a UK bird is our kingfisher. Others that are exceptional, they look odd. A bullfinch, male bullfinch, looks odd. You sort of think, you know, those colours are, they look like they've been painted on and they're a bit too strong. But yeah, we have beautiful bird song in this country, but we don't have lots and lots of bright colours, and we don't get lots of shouty loud birds like parakeets and things like that, although they seem to have got a hold in some places in the UK. They shouldn't be here. But anyway, I need another coffee, so I haven't had one for a while. Keep the inside warm even if the outside's not so good. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.